by now. Good afternoon or good evening or whatever time you decide to watch this video. I would like to say that this was a beautiful Sunday afternoon. The temperature here where I live is bearable. I imagine the temperature where Shadow and Sun living is unbearable, but that's the difference between, living in central Illinois and living at the ass end of America. Quite literally.
Yep.
Now, I can imagine there's other places in America that's worse than California. New York. Sorry, I'm just allergic to their bullshit.
They're like the only place that's worse. Like you're ranking the state. New York is the worst. California is second worst.
But as much as I everybody has an issue about where they live. People are normally not happy where they live, which is fine. It is the nature of. It's the nature.
No, that's not true. When we first got to where we live, it was great. But over the last 2 years, it's turned into a living nightmare.
You mean the temperature?
Not just that, but other things.
Well, I get what you're going with.
It's not really hotter. It's just I want to say drier.
Oof.
Probably.
Violence follows everything. Pardon me for a moment, but blah.
You have a point. Yeah.
Having never been to either, I'm gonna have to take your word for it.
Listen, when somebody, I know somebody, and I've said this before, who thinks LA is a beautiful city, and he says, "Look at New York. New York is bad. Look at LA. It's so much better in comparison." Yeah, you're right. New York City is garbage. I don't know enough about the rest of New York.
Yeah, I think it just depends on, like I said, where you want, where you're expecting out of the place that you live. I mean, if you want snow, move to Wisconsin, apparently, because that's what Max, says. If you don't want snow, move somewhere that doesn't have snow. So, I want to say congratulations to Shadow for winning a book off of Max's show. What did you
win? Fantasy role-playing game. I actually have a copy of it, but this will be a hardcover. Hopefully, it'll be autographed by not just Kevin Stambita, but I'm hoping that Heathen Dog and Max will be kind enough to scribble a little something in there, because it'll be the little guy's book someday. When I'm no longer with you guys, and then I will probably I don't know. I will give away the copy that I have to somebody who actually wants a copy of the fantasy role playing game, because it is a very interesting version of basically Dungeons and Dragons. There's some things about it I like, some things I don't, but in my game I literally use 4 separate game engines and just mash them together wherever I see fit. So.
Yeah, no, before we started streaming, you were saying I need to look into the alignment system for that system. Which
it's the most well thought out and documented and structuralized, so that there's the do's and the don'ts. If you're this kind of a good or evil, you will or will not do these things. Or you may, if you're like the chaotic neutral type of alignments, might do these things, might not. You don't have to. You're not, ordered to do certain things with certain alignments, and others, obviously, you will never do certain things, and you will always do other things. It's nicely well written and thought out, and mind you, this system hasn't changed for alignments in Palladium for decades, and it still holds up today better than the original alignment system from Dungeons and Dragons. I know a lot of games don't use it at all, which is fine if that's the way it is. Traveler doesn't really need an alignment system. It would just slow the process down. It's a science fiction game, and in a lot of science fiction games, for the most part, people are assumed to be the heroes, but when they're, morally, gray or obvious bad guys, you you can tell right away what.
Okay,
who's wearing a white hat, who's wearing a black hat.
Now, using that argument, let's say you're playing a Predator versus Alien RPG, because I believe they do exist. I think a variation of them do exist. And the main campaign is you are a whatever the Predator race is called. Now, through the Predator movies we've seen in the past, well, maybe not Jack, but the Arnold Schwarzenegger. Oh, have you? I don't know what movies you have.
I don't think he's seen the second one.
No, we've seen all of them. I watched a review of every single Predator movie, and the very next day I saw a very cheap pack of every single Predator movie that exists, and then we bought it and watched them.
I think the Predator movies are interesting. I mean, for what they are, they're a very interesting concept. Us being humans, being the top alpha, predator on the face of the earth. What happens when something with more advanced technology comes down and hunts us? Yeah, it's a very interesting concept. I'm not saying all the Predator movies have been, great, because they really haven't. But I still do like. Actually, I like the end of the second one, where Dan Glover's character is dealing with Silverback or the Golden Angel, whatever. Depends on where you get your information about that particular creature, that particular predator was. And he throws him that gun, which was a musket from like 1718, 1717, whatever era that was from. It gives, it kind of, that right there just rounds out, kind of not rounds it completely, but helps rounds out the race. They're a trophy hunting species. They enjoy the hunt, but they're still honorable. They still have rules where, let's say, the xenomorph just kill everything. They kill everything and reproduce. That's all that they do.
Yeah. Well, I don't necessarily think that they kill for pleasure. The xenomorphs.
Well, no, they kill because something is there, and they.
Right. I don't think they really derive any pleasure.
But that's also not what I said.
Yeah.
Right. No, I don't think that. No, I don't think they understand what pleasure is. I don't want the xenomorphs. The mindset. They're not human. They're not humanoid. Yes, they are humanoid, but they're not humanoid. Where the predator creature,
a highly invasive species with highly evolved habits.
They're bipedal cockroaches.
They're not even that. They're just cockroaches that can change forms in a way.
Yeah,
right.
What's up with that? We're not actually seeing it.
What's wrong?
We're not actually seeing the chat. Is there any?
Yeah. Hold on. The rest of New York is is mostly small cities surrounding by farms and forests, which is true. We love our guns. We are pro Second Amendment. We are anti Democrat. Which, you know what? I drove through New York State, and there is
good luck with that violence.
A lot of beautiful farmland up there. A lot of beautiful farmland up there.
I know pretty much nothing about the whole New England, New York area, so.
It pays to travel. I mean, there's nothing better in life than there is to getting in a car or getting ready to go on a trip and seeing the rest of the world.
Just on my other.
So.
Go there.
Going back to the alignment scenario, I don't think I think you're right. I don't think the alignment scenario exactly works for sci-fi so much. Maybe something. Are you guys having technical difficulties?
Yeah, we are. Well, we see the new comment. That's good, but nothing from earlier.
I was having that problem earlier.
Hey, Multi, what's happening? And everybody else in the chat, we can finally see your comments.
But okay, going with alignment, there's a weird kick I've been on because I was actually thinking about doing making an RPG game and just throwing out alignment. You're either good or you're evil. There's nothing in the middle. There is no neutral, no chaotic. You are either good or you're evil.
Well, according to many philosophies and religions, in the end, that is precisely accurate.
Yeah.
So,
and not only that, but it's a easier, simpler category, which doesn't restrict you, as in you were saying, oh, if you're chaotic evil, then that means you have to be the worst of the worst person that could ever exist.
Well,
only
actually,
committing atrocities and war crimes.
Well, no, neutral evil would actually be more the neutral goods and the neutral evils I view as more focusing on the evil itself than the lawful or chaoticness of behavior.
You know, I also think alignment is speculatory, one's perspective, because I'm pretty sure Adolf Hitler did not consider himself to be an evil guy.
Right, yeah, Hitler thought he was trying to save the world.
Right, but what you think is irrelevant to the facts. If you're raping, murdering, and cannibalizing people, you're evil, despite the fact that you think, you know, your tribe is okay doing said things.
Yeah, I think when you would do that alignment, well, what kind of alignment is my character? You never think a person never sees themselves in that light. And I think that's sort of the hiccup.
Well, some people.
There's a lot of people out there. No, there's a lot of people out there that revel in their own evilness and are quite proud of it. They usually don't admit it to just anybody because they've learned to not do so. And many people who say they're good are not. And many people who think they're evil are better than others.
Maybe.
I think it would be more of an actual awareness of one's own alignment that would be the big thing.
Yeah.
You may know you're a rat bastard, but you may be trying.
Oh, exactly. I know I'm a rat bastard, but I try to be nice to people. Well, certain people.
Right, but do you do it for the reason of, going along to get along, or trying to actually be a better person? There's a difference. There's a lot of people, that they are horrible human beings, but you'd never guess it because of the way they act at the right circumstances.
That's fair. The Robin Hood's kid. Oh, okay.
I hope it's communist.
Robin Hood. Oh, yeah, but King James put the dick into dictator.
I kind of agree with Mark for the most part. I mean, I don't think anybody would argue that Robin Hood was chaotic good, and the knights espoused to be something akin to lawful good, but in practice, were they? It's hard to say because especially with the Knights of the Round Table, so much of that is more myth than fact, and glamorized and pumped up over the years and centuries to look a certain way.
Right.
Whereas, we know a lot of the knights. It's hard to say the Knights of the Round Table because that may have been entirely mythological or mythic and not a real technically thing. The jury's still out
for Robin Hood.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I personally think there was someone, as close to having been the real Robin Hood as one could get, and I like to believe that there was a Robin Hood, but whether there was a Maid Marian and a Friar Tuck and a Little John and all the other things,
probably not.
Yeah, I know stories get taller on down the line as like the game of telephone. Things change over every new telling. It's very rare to find a story that is word for word unchanged since its original telling.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've always heard that there was 3 different guys throughout that time period that could have been Robin Hood, or if you lump them all together, they became Robin Hood. as you said, the phone, that game phone, telephone.
Yeah.
The whole Knights of the Round Table.
And I really like using that analogy because with the game of telephone, you can see in real time how with the only hindrance to the telling of the story is the fact that you have to whisper.
Right.
And even with someone who's got phenomenal hearing and a good memory and tells it properly, somehow within 10 people in a game of telephone, you will never get it 100% accurate from the beginning to the end.
Sometimes you can.
I suppose, but
I've done it. But the problem with telephone is that if a single person mishears what you say, then the entire thing goes down the toilet.
No, it can very much go to start with a line your mom
you can go from talking about how you cook burritos to I like to eat water, which is something that actually happened.
Oh, yeah. No, I think the very interesting example I saw was your mom. It starts with your mom as a wonderful cook to your mom is divorcing your dad. And I'm like, wow, I know what it was supposed to be when it started. How the hell did it get here?
Right. It would be interesting to get some people.
The real interesting thing is when you say my cousin killed my bird to my cousin. You can cut out everything else. That's what really happens.
Right. It would be interesting to have microphones so that we could hear every step of the game of telephone afterwards. And to be able to pinpoint where the mistakes happen and find out if there's any correlation to how those mistakes happen to how history and storytelling changes. Is it because someone is embellishing, or is it because of a faulty system of hearing or repeating along the way? I'm sure that it's mostly people embellishing the story, adding a little piece of a little something in to make it a little bit better, knowing that they're not really going to get the credit for it, but yet people still do it.
Oh yeah, most definitely. But that like I said, I'll have to look into that engine and see how their alignment works. To me, alignment can somewhat be a headache. Because especially when you get somebody at the table telling you how your character is supposed to play when it's that alignment. And I mean, there's some givens. If you're playing lawful good, you should be good, not for the sake of being good, but good because you're following the laws of the land.
Right. I prefer the former. The laws sometimes are
depends who makes the laws, though.
Right. I really like what Mark just said. So did law versus chaos filter into your world-building exercise as a major component?
Well, we finally get to the topic.
Thank you, Mark.
Not yet. Kind of.
Yeah, for me,
in a way.
I don't use law and chaos. I use good and evil always.
Well, in a way, that's kind of the same thing, almost.
Well, here's the thing. Goodness should not require laws for it to exist.
Yes, but the law should reflect morality.
Right, but being good is not the same thing as being nice. And goodness would include niceness as a not a requirement, but as a sort of a happy coincidence or side effect that goes along with goodness. And evil would use law and chaos simultaneously just to wreak the most evil, as opposed to trying to wreak the most chaos.
And for my version of this answer is no. Law versus chaos was not filtered into my world. I'm very much doing good and evil. There's no law. There's no chaos on the skill. I mean, not on the skill, but on the alignment table. There is just good, and there's bad, and there's the middle. There's always the gray middle area where the two kind of blend.
I would say that it might later.
Absolutely.
But I'm not entirely sure just yet. Depends on where I want to bring it.
I think depends
how much I want to preach.
I think a lot of the law is, for lack of a better word or term, more of a human construct or an intelligent life form construct, where they're trying to make sense of and make things easier and better.
Well, no, law is
right, like the Ten Commandments sort of thing. But I was looking at those a while back and realizing how just not just how intelligent and obvious they would be. I know it's the point.
That's yes.
That's the point. But it just makes so much sense that almost all of them would appear, for example, on alien worlds, they would be a natural conclusion.
Of course, these aliens are completely inhuman without any sense of morality or human thought in any way.
If you take the human element out, even though in this world, you still see law and chaos, order, not law, but order and chaos in nature.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think it is a natural. I don't really like the word law. It's men make law, not nature.
It's the word we've used for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
These laws of physics. You're not going to get a ticket if you break them, but they don't bend. They don't.
They don't physics, though. But from my understanding of physics, and trust me, as much I can fill up a fucking a thimble with the amount of understanding I have with physics, though. But the moment you think you understand something, it changes on you.
Sometimes.
And that's been the basic everything I've ever listened to when it comes to physics. Well, originally we thought it was this way, but when we took a harder look at it, it changed.
There are some because we haven't completely understood them. But some basics. Water is wet. Don't give me that. Well, not when it's ice. Well, then we wouldn't call it ice.
Well, technically, ice is wet when it's melting. And also, technically, water isn't wet because it makes things wet. Therefore, it can't be wet.
It's wet.
Yes, I do agree with this. Civilization
need law and order.
Yes, I completely agree. I have a list of rules I give myself. As of right now, I'm in my mid-20s of where my rules are, the things I will not do, because
I thought you were 30-something.
What? I'm 38, but I got 20-ish rules I follow that I won't do. Like the first rule is, don't put yourself in a situation where your daughter's going to be taken away from you. Rule number 1. Don't kill my ex-wife. Rule number 2. I
know a guy.
So do I. But these are some of the rules. These are some of the rules I have because I made the comment. I know myself. I can damn near justify anything. I am very morally flexible. I know what is wrong and I know what was right. There are certain things out there I just won't outrightly do because they're evil, they're disgusting, and they're deplorable. But at the same time, there are some good things. I'm like, well, that's just fucking idiotic. Why are you doing that? So I had to give myself rules.
I can't think of anything I would put like that when it comes to good.
Like I said, it's a matter of perspective. You have not lived my life. I have not lived your life. What we look at, so things are. If it's straight valid, good versus evil, yes. But it's the gray shit that can mess people up.
Unfortunately, I don't really see so much of the gray. I think that's just what people tell themselves to avoid doing the things they don't want because of it being perceived as bad or evil. I know that no one's perfect, and no matter how hard you try, there's never been a perfect human or intelligent life form that I've ever met that is perfectly good, nor perfectly evil. Even Hitler loved his dogs, so they say, as an example.
I don't know much about Hitler's personal life.
Right.
All I know is that Hitler was
He was
Yeah,
told
he
about
was married. He had 2 kids. He had some dogs. He had a gastro issue.
It's really
the
hard.
The problem with Hitler was that he was stupid. That was the problem.
Okay.
Not stupid with
there's a whole laundry
politics
list of problems.
No, the problem is that his ideology was based on just stupidity. I don't want to go into the just watch. There's a guy called Tick History. Just watch his video on why Hitler was a socialist. That explains Hitler's ideology perfectly, and it's actually dumber than what most people think it is.
Oh, I believe you.
Most people think, he was just a crazy, insane person who wanted to kill everyone and take over the world.
He was an idiot, but he wasn't crazy. I mean, the guy had if you're giving him D&D stats, he at least had like a high charisma, maybe a 16 or 17 in charisma.
That's which is so weird because obviously I never saw it, but I find it so weird how other people saw it as well. Maybe it's because I rarely hear him speak translated into English.
Well, because you're not a German in the 1930s.
Right. That's probably a big part of it as well.
Oh no, I watched some of his old speeches. The guy was very, very charismatic. He was a great oral, whatever that word is.
Every time I see him, he's just like this shouting lunatic. But damn near, spitting and frothing at the mouth.
We listen to.
I must admit to all that. Darn, I hate when that happens. I'm just gonna go with he was a psychopath and leave it at that.
No, saying that he was a psychopath is not only is it most likely not true, but
sociopath.
No. It not only in a way polls makes it seem Hitler wasn't responsible for anything. He had mental issues. He was in a bad place, which is something.
He is now. He's in a bad place now.
With pineapples. He's in a bad place with pineapples and people that eat pineapples on their pizza because that's fucking wrong.
I don't have any pineapples on my shirt, but if I did, they'd give you a couple of these.
But these are actually really good conversations that we're having because this could go into world building in an aspect of where do our villainy in our campaign, not in our campaign as we're running evil campaign, but in our world, where is the villainy?
Because if you run a bad campaign, you're a bad person.
That is not true.
These are things I never expected to hear him say.
Right, because I've run the longest running known to mankind. Yeah. I doubt anyone's run one longer than myself. But that's where I get on and off my high horse. I know from experience, and while I would never have changed a thing because the way it ended up was epic, but it's really just not a good idea.
See, I don't mind. This is where I differ from your dad, Jack. I don't mind running an evil campaign so I can just get it out of my player's system so we can move on to doing something better.
Right, but I just can't help but feel that you're all
enabling it.
Well, not just enabling it.
Isn't that the sort of video games cause violence? Oh, you give somebody. Somebody sees a gun. They're gonna commit war crimes now.
No, because you never know. Well, while it's probably highly unlikely that that's going to happen, there's something about it that just feels dirty, and it makes me question the people who want to do that. I would rather try to be a better person and player and character, etc. I realize as a dungeon master you need practice playing the bad guys, just like actors need practice. If they're going to play a bad guy, they may want to do some research. But the thing is to do that for fun. That's like saying that
what's your favorite video game? What's your favorite video game?
I'll let him go first because I don't remember its name.
Knights of the Old Republic.
My favorite video game is this game called Rolling Thunder, which was an old arcade game. The only reason I know it is because I have it on a disc of a bunch of old arcade games for the PS2.
Really?
Yes, it's a game where I think you're like a secret agent or whatever, and you're put into this big hallway, and you have to shoot sand people, and try not to die.
But what if those sand people have families? What if they have sand
I don't know the lore.
children?
Well, it is.
All I know is that when you shoot them, they turn into sand, but like colored sand.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking.
Games out there. Some games out there.
Not like sand people like Star Wars, just actual made of colored sand.
Well, when you play Knights of the Old Republic, do you get a choice between playing a Sith or a Jedi, or is it you just?
Yeah, and this guy is of the mindset that the Sith were actually the good guys, and that the Jedi are gay, because.
So wait! You saw.
Do you know why? No. Okay.
Yeah, because if people say, "Oh, look at the Jedi code,"
right?
That's cult. Look at the Sith code. That's good and freedom. No, the Sith code is satanic.
Parts of it are
Oh, and chat, I will get you guys' questions once we get to them. I'm not blowing you guys
part
off.
Of the Sith code is diluted. I admit, but
it's all diluted.
Well, no, because if you have no love and no romance, then you have no babies, and then you have no Sith or Jedi.
Well, wait.
There's a reason why.
And to deny oneself of the opportunity to have a family, to me seems.
Well, there's a reason why many religious with the Jedi are a religious.
Right, I just can't. I can't get on board with that.
There's a reason why many of them do that, and it's not because of any of the things that a libertarian like you would say.
I'm about to give you a double-barrel middle finger as well, on camera.
That's fired.
That's just a family show.
Yes.
No, I just think that everybody should, even the Jedi, have the opportunity.
Yeah, well, there's a reason why they aren't allowed it. Didn't George Lucas kind of like throw it into your face?
No, I never understood why.
The whole Anakin thing.
Yeah, that's a bunch of horse crap. Because the creator, the God of the universe, knew that Anakin was going to lose the love of his life and think that he was responsible, etc.
Well, yeah, but
a
full year of watching Jedi.
Who's the God in Star Wars?
George Lucas.
Oh, so George Lucas made Anakin the way he did.
I understand, but look at it this way: what if Anakin and Padme got together, got married, had babies, and she didn't die?
Well, and from a full year of watching weird Star Wars what if videos,
and they didn't come up with some other reason to forcibly turn him into Darth Vader. Some sort of plot contrivance that was destined and designed to make that happen. Had that one thing not happened, he probably would have been a pretty cool guy.
I don't know. He seemed to be like a whiny bitch from the get-go, but that's just me.
Well, that was part of, again, them trying to force feed that character down the road of the path.
Right. I'm not thinking about the actor. I think the actor did the best he possibly could. I mean, the writers made him into a whiny bitch. I hate it when people blame the actors for the fucking writers. It's the writer. If you have a problem,
right? The director at the very least would have said, "Hey, don't play this like a whiny bitch."
All right, let's get to some of these questions because they do actually contain.
Yeah, because this conversation is. Let's get to the topic.
We could have this conversation Tuesday night, Shadow.
Yes, we could have this conversation for 5 hours.
All right. When the world
building,
do you start in a small area out, or do you have a set cosmo, continents, races are out? So you have a world.
Yes. Technically, I have an entire galaxy, but because he said that making one world would be simpler, I just chose a world which I already had and was neglecting despite its importance. So I've had this for a while.
And I would have never thought of doing this in all my years of dungeon mastering. I've made all kinds of
Which is weird
paper
because
maps, but
it's weird because he was the one that taught me
oh
how to do
Jesus,
this.
Sean.
It's just a campaign where the characters are evil.
Yeah. I think
you know that question, Sherry. We'll get back to that one. We'll definitely have to get back to that question.
Yeah, it's just because I don't think people actually really want to run evil. I think they just want to run selfish. Evil would be doing things that the dungeon master would look at the players and go, "I'm out."
I mean,
well, no,
when the players start saying they're eating their opponents and their opponents are children after they've raped them, I think the DM would be, "I'm out."
Yeah.
That's what most people mean when they think they're going to do an evil campaign.
Right, but when they say they won't do that, then they're not really being evil.
No, evil. You don't. To be evil, you don't have to be the most apprehensible war criminal.
Reprehensible.
That's what I said.
You said apprehensible. If he's gonna flip me shit, I'm gonna flip it right back. Oh yeah, no, those are the extreme examples. But if you're going to run
extreme examples aren't the only examples.
I understand.
The extreme
but
examples
they shouldn't be off the table.
Example.
Is what I'm saying for an evil character party.
Well, let's say it has nothing to do with raping and cannibalism. Let's say that your one brother, the youngest brother out of three, has no way of becoming king because if the oldest brother dies, the second brother will gain the kingdom. So the third brother has basically got, the shitty end of the stick, and the best he can hope for is some land, some cash, and have a life that means something. Well, he doesn't want this. He wants to be king because he thinks his older brother is an idiot. He thinks his middle brother is weak, and he knows that he is the rightful ruler. This is, what their dad wanted.
Those are good examples.
Yeah.
And that would, in fact, be evil. But I think that, again, it's kind of like the Anakin situation. It would be the DM putting the character into that situation versus what the character wants. When you make up a character, let's say you make up a character, but you haven't yet determined your birth order, your family, your surrounding, you just say, I'm going to be a wizard. Oh, but I want to be an evil wizard. Well, what do you mean by evil wizard? Does that mean you want to be summoning demons? Okay. Or do you just want to, use your power to get rich and famous?
You're a
by
wizard.
Any means necessary.
You're a wizard, right? And you got a family and
No, we don't know about that yet.
Oh, okay.
Because those are circumstances that the DM creates. The players are what's important and their desires in the building of their character. What do they want? They want to? They say evil. What do you mean by evil then? You don't know how rich you are or how poor you are. What do you want to do in life that would brand you as being evil?
Then the person should not set up their alignment until we get a little bit of a backstory from them.
That's not fair because everybody's already said they want to run an evil party. Now you're putting it on the DM to create the circumstances why they're evil.
Well, this is the DM's job.
No. Not when the players come to the DM saying, we want to run an evil party. When the DM comes to the party and says, hey, would you guys mind running an evil party or would you like to someday? They should all go, no, what are you, fucking nuts? But if they say yes, then it's a different dichotomy. But when the players come to the group, to the DM saying, we want to do this, the DM's answer should be, well, what kind of evil are we talking about?
That's fair. You know what? We'll probably get back into this conversation this coming Thursday on Table Breakers. But today we're talking about world building, and like I said, we can have this conversation back and forth. I'm not saying I disagree with you. I'm not playing devil's advocate, but there's more than one way to skin a cat, especially when it comes to gaming.
I just noticed that Sean put the question in twice.
I don't know. All right, what does the mark say? Do you let your players help with your world building?
Absolutely not. Are they going to let me help them make up their characters? I need you to run a rogue. I hate running rogues. Well, I need you to. Oh, well, I want there to be a magical forest here. Well, I hate magical forests.
I've had DMs do that to me when I come in and I'm like the last person's like, hey, we need either this or this. Do you mind? And I'm like, whatever. I just want to play.
Sure, but I'd rather play a good game than, or I should say, I'd rather not play at all than play a bad game.
I get you.
All right, I want, I want as much control over the world because I have no control over the players, so to speak. That's their role. The GM's role is completely different. Now, I wouldn't be opposed to, prior to making a world, having the players say, hey, we kind of like to play in a game like this. Okay, give me. I'll get back to you after I've done some work. Write your suggestions down. That wouldn't be a horrible idea. As a matter of fact, in the Amber role-playing game, world making is almost entirely up to the players. They have the ability as their characters to go to any world they want, including a world where when they get there, they are the god of that world, and the whole planet's been waiting for them to get there. Talk about power. So there are some, exceptions to almost every rule when it comes to role-playing games. And if I've already, made a world, and I'm like, this is the world I'm using, or we're going to play on this world again, then the players really shouldn't have any say other than I want to go here, or I don't want to go there because last time I was there, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you're creating the world as the players are creating their characters, and you want that sort of back and forth and cooperation, etc., I don't see why that could be or would always be a bad thing or couldn't be a great thing. I've also seen games where there have been two dungeon masters. I've seen games where different things can the players and the DMs can work together. I'm not done drawing the world. I need some ideas, things like that. If like when I make worlds, a lot of times I make it as they go along. I only show them so many pages or pieces of paper of the map. That's all you know about. Well, what's over there? You don't know. You got to go over there or do some research. Or maybe the players will do some research going, is there any place known for this? I want to find this rare ingredient. Is there any place that's famous for having this, but kind of in abundance instead of they got 1 ounce of this ingredient, and I'm gonna have to give them an arm and a leg to get it, or go through 18 dungeons before I finally find the clue to where the ingredient is.
Like Mario, the princess is not at this castle. Please try again. What about you, Jack?
Well, I certainly wouldn't. I assume you're talking about the question of, yes, do your players help with your world building?
Not yet.
Well, with the one kind of existent experience I have, sometimes, but not really. Not only because it doesn't really have that. Well, okay, in a way, yes, but for something I wouldn't in any other circumstance. Because if you're just creating one world, unless of course the player has control over a certain part, like they're the king of some area, that's probably the only exception, is if the player has some sort of power or connection in this part of the map, this region, then probably I would in that situation, but any other time, definitely not.
I never thought about that. Or maybe I have, but I didn't think about it now. But if for example, you're running a character who is royalty or something like that, then surely they'd have the ability to say, I want you to plant a forest over here and make fountains over here and dig a canal over there. So that would leave marks on my map.
That would be an exception.
That would leave marks on my world map that I would have to more or less draw at some point or another, right?
Yeah.
That's fair.
So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your globe that you threw at me?
Yes, I did.
Now, you didn't just paint a styrofoam ball.
No, there was reason for everything. I mean, being it that this is one of, not the most, but one of the most important worlds in the universe.
In your universe.
The implying, yes, that. Okay. I wasn't saying...
I just checking to see if you had any knowledge that I didn't know about. You know, I know you're a smart kid, but I mean, you know where this, the coordinates of this planet in our galaxy. That's incredible. No. I'm really impressed.
If I was downstairs, I would have grabbed the knife.
I'm really impressed that he came up with this idea.
I made this a long time ago.
We go to the craft stores all the time, and we see the styrofoam balls and the styrofoam heads and pieces of styrofoam and things like that. Hold it up and give it a kind of like a little twirl there, so they get a nice little.
Well, it's not really going to matter because I did make a map of each continent.
Right. Well, we're going to get into that next. I think this is actually kind of, especially if you're going to play a sci-fi game. I think that's kind of what you're thinking.
Yes, it is a sci-fi game, but ignore where is that? Ignore that white spot. It's not there. It's not real.
Okay. You were. Yeah, am I correct in thinking you're building something akin to a Star Wars sci-fi fantasy story?
That is what it is, but this what would be in this world is, yes, it is, but not entirely.
Okay.
Yes, it's sci-fi, but there's no like space travel because we'll get there when we get there.
Okay. For me to answer this question is no. I don't let my players help build my world because it's not a world per se. It is an island in the world, but it is a fantasy-based game. They have no control over the rest of the other continents.
Yeah.
Now, if I guess where the thing is, hypothetically, let's say the world campaign I'm done is done, and they've done everything in that storyline I was planning on running, and they said, well, what's over on the next island? What's over to the west? What's over to the east? That would probably be the only input I would take from them.
Well, to the east is Britain, and to the west is ocean. So
right.
What if they found this? Because I'm using the Earth. I'm using the Earth as the planet.
Yeah.
So
because as soon as you tell your players you haven't drawn this part of the world, that's exactly where they're going to want to go.
Well, that's fine because I don't need to draw out that part of the world. That world's already been drawn out multiple hundred times on.
No, what I mean by drawn out, I mean also populated and ready for gameplay.
Yeah.
If you say we're going to be stuck here, they're going to keep wondering. Just like playing against type. We've had those discussions with Max. As soon as the players sense a weakness or anything like that, that's where they're going to go. That if you tell them, you can't go over here, they will spend hours finding out a way to go there just because you said no.
Oh yeah.
I had a player. He's a really good friend of mine. I put these two magical swords in a room. They were like the sword and the stone, but they were like this. Two swords, crossed embedded in a very specific place. It was obvious that they were on display, etc. And this character spent hours of everybody's time, even after I told him, you will never be able to take them out. Okay, let's just move on. The character kept going on and on and on as a player, trying to find some way, using every spell in their arsenal and every conceivable way, all the way practically up to jackhammers and drills to try to get these these swords out of this sword and the stone situation, because I said you can't.
Yeah.
They're destined for other player characters that haven't even been rolled up. And you may be lucky enough to be one of those characters. But after 2 hours of wasting everybody's time, I don't know, maybe not. No, but
no, I understand what
just
you're
an
saying.
example. Don't let your players know. Just say this is what we're doing for tonight, because this is what I, have planned out for everything, and that's what we're doing. To a certain extent, because if you're famous for running rope sandboxes as opposed to railroads, then you don't want them to go, whoa, suddenly we're on a railroad, huh? I didn't buy a ticket for this. I want to go where I want to go. And if I can't go there, that's exactly where we're going to want to go. No, just say this is, you've all made that social contract and agreement to do things in a certain way, and this is one of those ways and times where we're going to abide by the contract, and we are going to go into this adventure for the time being.
Right.
Because there's nothing saying that a sandbox world, when you're creating a world, has to be completely, spur of the moment, made up to cater to the players. You've made the world. They can go where you want. It's like those video games when the it's an open world. You can go where you want, but if you go here, you're going to die because you're not this level. I've already made the world. This is where the dragons live. Your first level, and you think you're going to walk in there, and, like you run the place. No, you're going to go over to these other areas because I made the world so that there are places you can survive, so that we don't spend the entire campaign rolling up first level characters, watching them die, and rolling up more first level characters.
Okay. The next one that got posted is, chat, please. Mark, if you got more questions, keep firing them in. All right. Thank you. He just put a new one after this one. Everything had to be played out. Everything had to play out.
That was really conversation.
Yeah, that was we missed that one. He's got one at the very bottom. Do you use different procedures for building for different genres, fantasy versus sword, and planet versus Old West? Yeah, actually I do. However,
yeah.
I actually use almost every single one of those genres in every world whenever I get the opportunity. If I can throw an Old West theme into any game, I'm going to throw some of that in there. Whether it be Call of Cthulhu, whether it be a Traveler game, a Gamma World, or a fantasy game. My fantasy games, there are 6 shooters. There are Gatling guns. But it is a fantasy medieval game that just so happened to have technologically advanced.
Medieval implies before the Enlightenment, before, well, some people say...
Okay, feudalistic.
Feudalistic?
Yeah.
That is worse.
Well, no, there's a king. There's knights and peasants. What I mean by worse is,
a feudal economy, a feudal system. Okay, my point being is, if you're saying feudal, yes, feudal is less of a time period and more of a system.
Right.
And yes, guns and stuff could still exist. But unless you're saying this is a world where the ideas of like technological advancement they kept going, but society stayed in a certain point, which is, I assume, what you mean.
Yeah.
Sure, but I don't know.
That's an odd question for me, because most of the world genres I've just played, it was fantasy. I've joked around with Bruce about making a Western version of Blazing Saddles, and
Blazing Saddles was a Western.
What?
Blazing Saddles was a Western.
Yeah, no, making a game, doing a RPG version of Blazing Saddles. And I got some notes. I rewatched the movie and a few other, like Maverick, the old Maverick movie / TV.
Silmarilla's a good one because of all the different character types that make up the party.
Right. So it is a way. There is definitely a way to do a campaign in my mind that would work that way. But I'm not Mel Brooks. I will never be Mel Brooks. And as much as I have a rough sense of humor, or not exactly a family-friendly sense of humor, there's a whole level there that that's beyond me. That is Mel Brooks. And so I would run a Western, and I would build the scenario, everything about the scenario differently. But I'm not trying to say that I'm lazy, but I have this wonderful planet that we already live on that have had a Western timeline, that's had a sword and not so much fantasy, but fantasy, because we did not know what was over the next hill. We gave the world fantasy. Even if it never existed, but with an RPG, it doesn't mean it doesn't have to exist or it shouldn't exist. Where you shouldn't go into that cave because vampires live in there, or a dragon, or watch out for fairies because they like to steal children. These are and I'm just using Irish mythology.
Funny how times never change.
What?
Nothing.
You making fun of me?
No.
No, he was not making fun.
Are you wearing boots?
Am I wearing what?
Boots.
No, I'm not wearing boots. But I was about ready to quote Goodfellas. Are you making fun of me? Do I make you laugh? Do you think I'm a funny guy?
Do I amuse you?
Yeah. He's the reason why I don't go through drive-through. But anyways, that's a whole different, movie. But anyways.
Sorry. Yes.
Lethal Weapon, another great series of movies that I think everybody should watch to put on their man cards. Shadow's like, I don't know about that one. Lethal Weapons, Mel Gibson, Danny Glover.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are great movies. Whatever. Anyway, so so I guess you both have answered this question. I've answered this question, I believe. Wait, did Jack answer this question?
Yes, he did.
All right. So here's another question on world building. I guess I'll throw out there. Now, when you're doing your planet, when you're building your planet, well, Jack is building a planet, which I think is a whole lot more work than I'm doing right now. I'm just working on a continent, a small little island.
Well, yeah, but the smaller the scale, the more detail you can put into everything.
Do you have
That's a good point.
you have your heroes planned out? I'm not talking about the player heroes. I'm talking about the world heroes. The stories, not so much the stories. That's a bad word.
The NPC.
The NPCs worked out.
Not necessarily the NPCs. What I do.
Hold on. It's
Animation?
Yeah, it is. I've actually been. Go ahead. You got this.
Not necessarily the NPCs, but I do have the characters which are important, but that probably wouldn't ever be seen. That probably wouldn't ever be seen by the players. If that makes sense.
Gotcha. I'm using Irish mythology. There's a lot of good stories in Irish mythology that could turn into a lot of good RPGs.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna go that route. You go write. The old saying, write what you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go that route. So it's like I have the Irish gods. I have the main antagonists of them. I have the heroes. And now I'm just working on how do I want things to turn out. Do I want them to turn out the same way they did in the mythologies, or do I want to flip the script?
Yeah. Well, considering the fact that I'm making a world which is very different from Earth, I mean, one thing, I guess this is like physical world building, which isn't exactly what you said, but we'll get into that later, actually. But because of the way I'm doing it, and because of the way that the general story, which doesn't go around this planet, but that this planet is a part of. Well,
Right.
listen, I haven't yet figured out how I want, because the whole thing is that there's this thriving society on this world, and they've locked themselves onto their planet because they ventured outside and they found out that not only is their ancient enemies like religiously the very opposite of everything they are, has created a galaxy spanning empire. So they decided to just lock down on their world and also the moons around them and just keep everything there. Don't let anybody leave. Don't let anybody come in.
That's fairly xenophobic.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of like what the Japanese and the Chinese did. But I don't like the Japanese, so I'm not going to say that I took any inspiration from them, because I didn't.
I don't know. Some of the Japanese mythology is just fun.
That's true.
It's
more modern, and by modern I don't mean like modern. I mean more 20th century to now Japan that I don't like.
We all have our hang-ups.
Yeah, much like it's 20th century to now Germany that I don't like. Anyways, they've locked themselves down here, so they're because they have this entire world, they're still progressing technologically, and their society is thriving, but something happens and everything falls apart. Software published materials. Tell with the process? No, but I probably should. But the problem is that I haven't yet figured out what I want it to be just yet. I have multiple ideas, but I don't know. I guess it really comes down to how much do I want to preach. But what it really should be is what makes most sense regarding the story that exists beyond this one planet. And I haven't quite figured out which one makes sense yet.
Gotcha. All right. The next question: do you use any tools for world building, certain software or published material to help with your process? Start with you, Jack, because I think your dad's still in the little boys' room.
Yeah. I know, but I should. I mean, with this, I haven't used anything other than, I guess I used some battle simulators, but that doesn't count.
Is there any RPGs that you're going through, like Traveler or any of the art to lock in like the engine you want your world to work on?
Not yet, no.
I'm using Pathfinder First Edition for the engine I'm using my world on. So in published material, there is a bunch of old and new books of Irish mythology getting printed out almost yearly anymore, it feels like, where I can go to my local library or to my local bookstore and get maybe find a Irish mythology or an Irish story that I haven't heard about, which is going to be, I'm not saying that there aren't any left, but after hearing them most of my life, they're all just slightly repetitive, one from the next.
That makes sense.
And I'm not saying that's a horrible thing. I'm just saying it is what it is. So, yeah, I will. If somebody has a different take on the Fianna in ancient Ireland, then I'll pick it up and read it. Or Finn McCool, or Finn McCool, which is known as Cuchulainn. Hey, I pronounced that 3 times fast. And I'll take it from there. What?
Nothing.
So that's what I do. What about your dad? I don't want you to answer him, but I'm pretty sure he pulls out whatever books he needs and uses a little bit of that.
Probably. And like Kevin said last time, I'm not sure if you heard, but mixed systems is what they use.
Yeah,
they don't create their own system by stitching things together, which I always thought was the best way to do it. You take stuff you don't like from certain things and add in things you do. If there's a rule you don't like, you change it. I don't see why you should do anything differently.
Yeah. Unless it's not like they're going to come any of these major companies are going to come knocking on your door and says, I don't like the way you've been running my game. I'm taking my book back. Because if they do, that's just dumb.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of why I don't really see a point to making your own role-playing game, because there's so many out there that you can just create your own via just taking rules out and putting new ones in.
Yeah. I completely agree, but to each their own. I mean, everybody's got to, do what they think is best. I mean, hell, I know Bruce is building his own campaign, not his own campaign, but his own RPG style gaming where he's switching out the dice and doing other stuff. I know Max is doing something. I'm very much happy with the systems that are out, and I will tool them in whatever direction I need them to be to work.
Yeah.
And that's normally my MO. So we didn't really talk about this last night. Well, we did, but we didn't. Would you care to show the people in chat what you did yesterday?
Yesterday. Oh, there he is. What I did yesterday. Oh, yes, that.
Look, he looks a responsible young adult.
Yeah.
That song, Signs Everywhere, no longer applies to him because he's not a long-haired hippie like his dad.
Hey, I resemble that remark, except the hippie part.
He is a hippie, scientifically proven.
This shirt don't mean anything.
I think it means a lot, actually.
Yeah, I think he's feeling.
I'm actually wearing this for Sean Cherry to know that yes, I do. I too have loud and brightly colored Hawaiian shirts. Yes. I used to love wearing.
Not just Hawaiian shirts.
But I it's hot.
I got you. So, hey, since you're back, you care to answer this question?
Okay. Software, no. Published materials, I've read a lot of world-building books in the past. Not so much lately because I've read those books and haven't bought any new ones. Thank you. Thank you very much. But, I've read a lot of the great sci-fi and fantasy stories. If I pick up a book and it's got a map, there's a good chance that I'm going to read that book. If it's got a map of the world, I know that it's my cup of tea, so to speak, that the author has done the kinds of things that I do and is starting to write about something that's going to interest me, that they've made a world and they're going to invite me to visit their world and enjoy and explore it as they've laid it out. But I definitely don't use any software. And when I draw my worlds, I use pilot pens, and I actually used to use crayons, but I'll use colored pencils. I've also used some of the old Dungeons and Dragons rub-on transfers, where you take a pencil and you rub over it until you force the image to transfer itself onto the paper for animals and things that I couldn't draw, and monsters. Those were a great tool back in the day. When building a world, there'd be I think there was a witch or something like that. And this is where the witches live. This is where the dinosaurs live. That kind of thing. Like in the old maps, you'd see a sea serpent off on the ocean somewhere because someone thinks or sighted something and they called it a sea serpent and are trying to warn people, don't go here because here be dragons, that sort of thing. But I keep it really, really simple. I draw my maps the way I envision people of the olden days would draw their maps. I don't necessarily look to other old maps to get those ideas, but I just use my own style. The mountains are sideways. It's never a topographical map where you're looking straight down. I really don't like those except for sci-fi games. Even on worlds where flying ships may exist, Flying Dutchmen and galleons and spelljammers, I still draw them the sideways fashion because it's just, for me, it's more like not just a map, but it's also a picture trying to relay the way these people, and I do consider them primitive in a fashion compared to sci-fi games. That they're, this is the way the cartographers drew the map, and this is the best you're going to get. It leaves everything a little bit vague when it comes to spatial relationships. This mountain compared to this town, how far away it is, because I don't really picture them actually having the tools to say this is 8.5 kilometers away, etc. Because all those movement rates and things like that are incredibly subjective. It's not like driving on a freeway and you use Google Earth to figure out how long it's going to take you to get there, surface streets versus the freeway.
Well, of course they still could measure it,
but yeah, they really wouldn't waste the time to do that until technological advancements or something came along to make it easier to do so. It's about a week away. If you hustle, maybe it's 5 days. If it's raining, it might be a week and a half.
Yeah,
if your horse throws a shoe or your cart wheel breaks, it could take a month.
Yeah, I completely agree. Measuring out the distance between point A to point B by day is probably a more realistic way, especially back in the day. Other than I think it's 4 or 5. It's 20 miles down the road. What's 20 miles? These are concepts that a lot of people didn't figure out. But if you told somebody back in the day, if you keep walking that way for about a day and a half, you should be within a day and a half, you should be there.
And Sean, yes, I one of the reasons I like colored pencils is because I don't know what they would use in the old days
to color.
Yeah, I'm going to make the forest green. Did they use berries or smudged leaves or things like that?
Berries on paper.
Or whatever they use for paints and inks. I do it because it gives a faded sort of effect, because you can never really color pencil and make it perfectly uniformly green or blue or what have you. And it just gives it that sort of faded, haphazardly drawn look to it. I don't want my maps to look like they were computer drawn or drawn by an expert.
Probably
because I'm not.
They probably did it the same way that they did any other sort of pens or.
Right. Well, they didn't use oil paints or something more fancy like that. But I just like the look. It just gives that sort of weathered or imperfect way of depicting a map.
So there's 3 things I don't do well that I say that comes out of the retarded monkey. 3. There's 3 things I really don't do well. There's other things, but these are the main 3 things that have kicked me in the ass so far. Keeping my mouth shut. I can't do that. But no, that's not one of them. That is one of them, actually. That's number 4. Anyways, or number 1, depends on how you
number 1?
Yeah, I was about to say it's number 1, or it just really depends on you look at it.
I was giving you shit because you're,
It's me. I get it. But no, from a creative point of view, from creating, what?
I said it's just what I do. It's a talent.
Yeah. It's fine. If I draw anything, it looks like it came out of the retarded monkey factory. If I try to bake anything, it looks like it got baked.
Wait a minute. Where is this factory? I've never heard of such a thing.
It's outside of New Jersey.
Can you imagine such a place?
There's one in California, though, too.
What do you?
Yeah, we live pretty close to it.
Yeah, we're about an hour away. Jinx showed me a Coke. Wait, I don't drink Coke.
Yeah.
Who says, wait. Oh, we're talking about that kind of Coke. Okay.
Yeah, he has enough of that already.
His mustache is not white from old age. It's just from powder.
Hey, it's not white. Yeah, right.
It's stained.
I'm good, guys. Now,
what can I say? He likes to go skiing. But anyways, I can't draw. Everybody's like, drawing is easy, and I'm thinking to myself, y'all can go fuck off, because drawing is not.
I think you still have the legend that I showed you where I drew the mountains and the hills and stuff.
Oh yeah.
We were playing in Bruce's game. He makes a hill. It's a circle. It's an upside down C. That's it. That's all you need. If you want to draw a little.
Upside down C just be a reversed C.
Well.
An upside down C would just be another C.
Are you happy? Upside down U?
Well, no, because a U is typically like
smart.
I like
it just an upside down half circle for hills. When he did the wheat fields, it's just two little yellow lines sticking up over each.
Were they yellow?
Yeah, they were yellow. Yeah, yeah. But you don't need much more than that. Just
I don't even think you really need color.
Right. No, but that's what he did, and just come up with.
That it won't be color if I'm drawing something out. I'm like, okay, scroll it over, rolling the pencil over. This says black. Okay, we're gonna go with this. Raspberry purple. What? Okay, we're going with this.
Right, but you just with the legend I gave you, it's the simplest, most dumbed down version of each geographical feature. Mountains are just a V with a couple of lines in it for a little bit of shading. You can literally copy, what I did every time you want to, next time you do a hex crawl or something like that. Just there's a mountain, river. It's a squiggly with another squiggly right next to it. Forest, a couple of trees, and green.
The island I'm using is Ireland, so I mean,
so everything's green.
Not all of it, but most of it is. But yeah.
Except for the British part.
No, well, the British part doesn't exist yet.
You're right.
Because they haven't reached it, or because of
because they haven't reached it.
Actually, that's the funny thing was back in this time period, they did not know that there was another island over there, or they assumed there was another island over there. But because of the fog and the weather, they were never 100% sure.
Yeah,
it's like when Romans got to Britain and they would look over, keep looking west, they would see glimpses of maybe what looks like an island, but then like a roll of fog would come in and it would just disappear.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm treating Britain. That's how I treat. If they look to the west. If they look to the east, what's on the eastern side of us, you think you see what might be land way out there, but you're never sure because of the fog that rolls in. It may be a figment of your imagination, or it may be a real thing. Then when they get invaders, then if I decide to do the whole invading thing, then that will be introducing the next world, next island into that world. But I'm starting small with great detail. So when I decide to spread out, all the foundation for the most part for my storyline will be already laid. Which I might be doing it wrong, but as I said earlier, you write what you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Unless
that's why sci-fi aliens are just humans with face paint.
See, I don't know if Max will like my campaign or this world I'm building because there's no furries on it. So that's always going to be a question.
So speaking of furries, Mark's comment about the mutant monkey bakery or factory in it. I'm going to go with the monkey cyborg installation where they turn the monkeys into cyborg killing machines.
So the whole infinite monkey typewriters. Oh, if you had a bunch of monkeys on typewriters, they'd eventually produce Shakespeare. Well, you have infinite monkeys, and you're putting them on typewriters? That's the biggest waste I've ever heard. Right. You've given me a million. You didn't give me a million. You gave me infinite monkeys, and you expect me to just put them on typewriters? You give me infinite typewriters too.
You ever heard of the red cherry argument when it comes to monkeys? If you get like a monkey, right, in a troop, and it starts washing its fruit, washing a berry, then the other one sees it, then it starts doing it, and so forth and so on. Next thing you know, you'll have hundreds of monkeys washing their fruit before they eat it because one started it. So I don't know about the whole Shakespeare argument. I don't, whatever.
Well, no. If you give enough time, a bunch of random garbage will eventually turn into something comprehensible.
Well, that makes sense for the Jerry Springer show.
Because the whole point of the infinite monkey thing is like, oh, you have infinite monkeys, and they're on typewriters, and they don't know what they're doing. They're just hitting the typewriters repeatedly. But because it's infinite monkeys, eventually one of them will just randomly type out Shakespeare, ignoring the fact that, yes, that's true, but there's infinite monkeys, infinite typewriters. Why make them just? Why would you want to reproduce Shakespeare with infinite monkeys?
Yeah, this is probably going further than it really needs to go, even for me. But you could teach a gorilla how to do sign language, like a very simple sign language, so they understand the concept of what.
Wait a few hundred years and give them religion, and they can be close to humans.
That's nope. We don't need that.
You want to make Planet of the Apes? Because that's how you get Planet of the Apes.
I knew you would say that.
But I think it's interesting, even for
RP. That's really the solution to all the world's problems. But like in real life.
Man, somebody saw Wizard of Oz.
Monkeys were not meant to fly.
Actually, I think it's a gorilla. I don't know.
Except in the Wizard of Oz. And then those monkeys are terrifying.
Those monkeys are terrifying. But no, what I was going to say is I thought it was very interesting. I thought it was interesting and really cool. They were able to teach a gorilla how to communicate.
Yeah, it's absolutely
that
amazing.
Was pretty much a small child.
I mean, still, that's a huge bridge. That is a huge bridge that just got cost by two different species. I mean, yeah, we have a lot of things in common, but we're not the same creature.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say distant cousins, but we're not. I mean, distant cousins, but we're not the same. That's at least my argument on it. I mean, your miles may vary, as Max will put on that thought process.
Yeah, I don't think that we're ever gonna get we need to integrate the monkeys. It's like maybe in a few thousand years, yeah.
Well, Russia already tried to send one to space. I mean,
well, we did too. Everybody tried. We sent worms to space.
That's how you end up with graboids.
No, what we did was we sent fish to space, but we sent fish eggs. No, we sent fish eggs to space as well as regular fish. The fish couldn't swim properly, but the fish that were born in space could swim perfectly fine in space.
I didn't know that. That's pretty amazing.
We also sent a lizard to space and cut off its legs and its tail, so that if the lizard could regrow its tail, then a human who gets any sort of injury in space could properly heal. Because this was during the beginning of space technology, so we had no idea. Maybe if somebody gets a very minor cut in space, it'll never heal until they come back.
That's so weird. I mean,
that's what they were worrying about. They thought maybe, what if somebody goes to space and they get like a paper cutter, they get their hand is torn off or something, and they just won't be able to heal at all because they're in space. We need to send a lizard up there missing its tail to test it out, and it came back fully grown. So
that's cool. That's good to know.
All right. Where else?
I mean, you need to do the kind of tests in that situation. That's why they sent so many bugs and cats into space.
What about the big bad? I'm not saying an evil campaign, but let's say the big bad. Have you figured out who your guys' big bad is? I mean, is it a Skeletor type version? Is it Mumra? Is it, Castro, Hitler of the elves?
To be honest, it'd probably be, knowing me, it'd probably be a Castro type figure, but I don't want to go that route.
I blame baseball for Castro.
Baseball?
Yeah.
Why baseball?
Because Castro wanted to play baseball and they didn't let him.
If Castro was allowed to play baseball...
Actually, wait, no, I didn't. I've heard that before. I should have remembered that.
So I blame baseball for Castro.
Yeah?
I mean, unfortunately, that's not that far of a stretch. I'm pretty sure some people in the chat might comment like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But,
Well, Hitler only existed because of art school. If he was let in, then... But everybody knows that.
Yeah, man. Anyways.
Everybody. Back to Hitler.
So you're going to do a Castro, a guy who was a peasant who did not like the regime, so he raised up an army and took down the regime and replaced it with a dictatorship?
I might do something like that, or at least kind of, but I want to go with a more almost like Lovecraftian style thing, which is what I always try to go with. Of course, I could do something different, but
that is just too many tentacles.
Well, no, not without that. Just without that part, because I hate that.
Just the ancient cosmic horror.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of surprising. I mean, not entirely.
Have you seen the picture on the dry erase board that's on the fridge?
No. I get it. It's just, it's usually not a young man's go-to for the big bad. I tend to go with
for me, it always has been.
Well, there's the H.P. Lovecraft book of all H.P. Lovecraft knowledge. Well, not all, but
almost all.
Everything except his letters, which whatever. I tend to go with
4 more books.
Yeah, I tend to honestly go with some of the cliches and common tropes, that being a dragon or a lich or something along those lines.
For your world?
Yeah.
What is it going to be in your world that you're making?
I was actually joking with somebody about doing this campaign. They asked me, so who's your big bad? Which one of the fake court? Or is it Morgana? And I'm like, no, I think my big bad is going to be St. Patrick.
Okay.
Why?
Before St. Patrick went to Ireland, Ireland had a religion, had its own religion. It might be flawed, but it had its own pagan religion.
Yeah, and the pagans were... I mean, as much as I like to rally around the Aztecs, it's...
The Catholic Church... I'm not talking, in the off chance that DM James hops on here and gives me another schooling, I'm talking about the Catholic Church. I'm not talking about the Orthodox Church. I'm talking about the Catholic Church. They did some horrible shit over the years.
Yes.
They were far from alone in that respect.
Not only were they far from the only ones, but they were far from being the worst.
So, I'm just saying they come to a new continent. If people didn't follow their thought processing and religion, those people would often die horribly.
That's true. The Spanish. Well, nobody liked Spanish.
Well, no one saw the. I can't say that word. I've always had issue with that word. Yeah.
Even though everybody did expect it, they told everybody that was going to happen, but nobody believed them. Actually, just nobody cared. Nobody thought they were going to do anything.
It's funny how history repeats itself, and that might happen again. Anyways, moving on. But it won't be religion, it will be politics.
Yeah.
If you say so,
But
no, I mean, yes, I understand what you're saying there, Cherry, but not all Celtic mythology was about sacrificing. Some of it was about standing up towards evil, and that's kind of where I'm going with it, and just poking fun at the Catholic Church, poking fun at the Catholic Church too.
I've had my life's dose of Catholic Church jokes from a certain El Salvadorian nationalist.
Well, considering I was raised Catholic and I've been on this earth a tad bit longer than you have, you might have to deal with a few more.
I will. And given the fact that this kid's an atheist, I'm just going to throw out some math and...
Well, it's the moment he said an atheist, anything he has to say about the Catholic Church is non-void. It's like, no. If you don't drink the Kool-Aid, you can't bitch.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, that's another question. Are you going to bring religion into your campaign?
Certainly. I mean, the entire thing is... I'm definitely going to do that.
Yeah, that was one of the things I didn't like about Tolkien, was how he just sort of, kind of wimped out.
Ignored it.
In the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. Just even back then, that seems like kind of like a wimpy move. He could have I mean, can you imagine what he would have come up with? Not saying it would have been great or maybe not a little bit heretical or blasphemous or something like that. It might have been. But had he chose to actually include that into those stories, even just slight passing.
Well, yeah, that's the culture. There are very few non-religious cultures that exist.
Right.
Especially in, I mean, I'll use my world for an example. I mean, I'm trying to add a bit of, I'm trying to add a bit of Mexican influence into the world. And, well, some people might disagree, but the Catholic Church is essential to Mexican culture. So.
Well, after smallpox, they needed something to rebuild on. Sorry, but what happened to the Aztec culture? They all disappeared. It was called smallpox. It was brought by the Spaniards.
Yeah, no one liked the Spanish, but they did. The Spanish did one good thing, and
they made the green stuff world.
Two good things.
They brought cigars.
Wait, did they?
They brought, yeah, because actually, I don't know if I think it was the Spaniards. When the Spaniards came to America, they saw natives smoking a cone-shaped thing, which turned into tobacco, which turned into the modern day cigar. So yeah, if it wasn't for the Spaniard, it's anyways. There's your cigar history lesson for the day that no one needed.
Well, no, anytime you could throw that in there, that's one of your things,
That's pretty much all. Every live stream that I go into, half the time turns into some Mexican history lesson, maybe Spain. If you're lucky, you'll get some. Can't even finish that sentence.
See, I know Sean said that Lord of the Rings did not have a god, but I thought there was one mention.
The Silmarillion or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Isn't that helping the creation story of that universe?
Iru. Wait. Hold on. There was a god in the Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Yeah, there was, but we didn't.
But again, like I said, I was talking. Practices. Well, I was talking specifically The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, not the Silmarillion, which
because he didn't read the Silmarillion.
Yeah, I tried.
Well, I mean, not Gandalf. Yeah, Gandalf was like an angel of some sort.
Yeah, this is true. But here's the thing. Most people who've read Tolkien have not read the Silmarillion. Most people who try to read the Silmarillion fail miserably, and I'm one of those people. I just could not make my way
through.
Okay? And he could have easily put that stuff in. However, he wrote The Hobbit and he wrote The Lord of the Rings pretty much in that order. Then the Silmarillion, I believe that's the way it came out, or at least that's the way it came out to the mass public at large who were buying books and reading his books. They got The Hobbit, then they got The Lord of the Rings, and none of it was in there. It was completely omitted. And the Silmarillion, you could say that it was written after the fact, and that's kind of, sorry to say it, but kind of retarded.
I'm actually, I am by no means a Tolkien historian. I know, what I know about Tolkien, once again, could probably fill a small glass. But he was a hard-nosed Catholic. I'm surprised he mentioned any kind of God other than the Abrahamic God at all.
Well, the same could be said about C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Narnia Chronicles, but he made his own version of the same kind of story in a way. I'm sort of, generalizing. And in his version, he was trying to make it, trying not to be heretical or blasphemous and keep the same ideas and the same notion of the sacrifice for our sins, etc. In his story.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. If there are other worlds out there with intelligent life, and one of them's Narnia, then maybe Jesus didn't go there. Instead, Jesus went in the form of Aslan, and that's just, it all boils down to the same, big kahuna up there in heaven who maybe, oh, I was Jesus. Now I'm going to be a lion.
That is definitely his call, and I'm not getting away with.
Or maybe he's going to be a big, goofy looking dog.
I was started reading the Dresden Files. This is when I very first got into reading Dresden Files, and I think it was right into summer night. Yeah. Well, there's aspects of that where I'm like, "Fuck, Narnia is not as you said, not a planet. Narnia is just in the Never Never. It's in the spirit plane. They got teleported.
Right. Well, I mean, the exact definition of the heavens is yet to been scientifically proven of what that is and what it looks like and what it encompasses. I think for good reason, but the concept of alternate worlds, which is what we're talking about here, other worlds besides the one in which we live in. Quick side note: I never use Earth in any of my games, even in my. I
just blew up Earth.
Even in my sci-fi games, even in my superhero games, it's Earth does not exist. This is a completely different.
And I'm not trying to do. I mean, I don't mean for my role to come off as being lazy because it's not. I'm actually putting work into it, but I want to do a somewhat historical fantasy RPG world.
Yeah, every time I.
Well, you write what you know, and until you've read dozens, I would say, just a rough guesstimate number of world stories of fiction and fantasy and science fiction, etc., that have completely different worlds and cosmologies and on all the things that go with it. It's hard to just pull that out of your ass and just go, well, I'm going to make a world. It's going to be the best, and I'm not going to be influenced by anyone.
Well, let's say I set up my world on Mars. So you're making a John Carpenter style RPG? I'm like, no, it's on Mars.
Carpenter was somebody else.
Yeah, no, it's on Mars. But yeah, there's a book series and TV and movie and comic books where he was that. So I can't use Mars. Hey, you could use Mars.
Of course you could use Mars. Of course you could. People have done it already. Even some of the John Carter of Mars. I want to say the old movie serials or what have you. They were very different from what Edgar Rice Burroughs actually wrote. You could write, I mean, you can write anything you want,
Yeah.
But writing without a little research and doing a little of the legwork, so to speak, is it's like trying to build a house without doing the research and learning some of the skills. It's not gonna be a very good house. And if you're building a world, that's a bigger project than just a house. You might want to do some research. Not saying there's any definitive research that you should do.
Yeah.
But it can't hurt to do some. And that's kind of what this is all really about, is getting people the tools and the advice and the help that people who've made worlds before could offer to someone who wants to do their own world. There's lots and lots of resource material out there. And most of it is just science fiction, fantasy, what have you, that has, no intention of teaching those skills, but yet they're in there. If you read into it, read between the lines, you will find things you like and things you don't like, things you want to copy, things you do not want to reproduce.
Right.
And it's entirely up to you. I've always looked at it kind of like the movie, even before I saw it, the movie What Dreams May Come. When you die and you go to heaven, you get your own heaven. Basically, I'm kind of summing this up and paraphrasing greatly, but you get your own heaven, and it's whatever you want. Well, this is kind of like a sneak peek at your own heaven. Make it a world. Unless you're trying to make some ugly world that's
or a political statement.
Right. If you're trying to, do any of those, like you said, making a statement, whether you want to make your own hell or just make a world that you don't want to visit would be a nightmare. Okay, that's cool. Sometimes that's what you need. In this location, I need a really crappy world. But over here, I need a paradise world, or at least it's paradise for me. This is a place when, if I died and went to this fantasy world and this was my heaven, I would be in heaven. I think a lot of people, when they make their fantasy stories, do one or the other, or maybe a mixture of both or something. But when Michael Moorcock dies, I think he's still alive. He may very well spend some of his time in heaven. Again, I'm making assumptions that he's going to go and visit Melbourne. He's going to go maybe be Elric, or just be a fly on the wall and watch the Elric story play out, or something like that. You're creating a world that you should either never want to go and use it as a cautionary tale of, this is what happens to bad little boys and girls. They get to send to this particular Forge world in the Necromunda universe. Or if you're, a good little elf, this is where you're going to get to go when, it's your time to, go up or down. This is going to be your idyllic world. Draw it out, plan ahead. Make a world that you would enjoy going to, or that you would fear going to, if that's what you're trying to accomplish.
Now, you mentioned that. Well, Jack, I got a question for you. Realistically,
yes.
Your dad has mentioned that you've been doing a lot of work on this one.
I have.
What are some of the things that you've done? Out of curiosity, I want to talk about that for a few minutes.
Mainly mapping, because I haven't figured out. I'm trying to come up with the ancient history of the world to sort of set the stage and how the world got to the point that it is, because I want to start the story either right after or right before everything collapses. So I have a map right. Oh, I'm gonna try to pull out the map. No, I made a map of each continent. Here. Oh wait, is that it?
Yeah,
no, that's a different map. Sorry, very different map. Still a map, but different.
Do it sideways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that is really cool.
Thank you. This would be the main continent where mostly everything will take place here. The one after this one, as well as the island off to the side. Well, this island up here is very separate from this. This is the desert that you see here, with this island, which has a completely different race and culture on that small island there. And they're pretty much completely separate from everything else that would happen. They didn't take part in the isolation. They have a small, not necessarily empire, but they have a small colonial sphere in the galaxy.
That's cool. That is really cool.
The northern continent, as well as a small Antarctica type thing, which is surrounded by a storm for reasons which I have a good understanding of, but I'm not entirely sure how I want to do that.
That's where King Kong is going to live. It's called Skull Island.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That is really, really cool. I don't have any maps drawn out because I don't draw. But I can print out a map of Ireland, the continent of Ireland, or the island of Ireland, I should say, and to start. I basically know where everything is getting started at.
Yeah, and even I could even lower it down to most everything starting on this island right here, where the capital city would be. It'd probably all be right here in this area.
Gotcha.
But
now, the next thing I want to talk about, Jack, is you're starting high school. You're going to be a freshman in high school. You know how awesome that is, isn't? I mean, is?
Yeah, I've been to this high school before.
Oh, have you?
He did. He went summer school.
Oh.
That's right. That's very cool. Are you excited about going your freshman year of high school?
Kind of, yeah.
I mean, what are some of the things you're going to be doing this year? I'm curious.
Well, I'm gonna be doing I'm just gonna be doing the basic starter things because we weren't really allowed to do much else. We were only allowed to choose one.
Elective?
Yes, well, we technically could have done two if we did summer school, which is exactly what I did.
So what elective are you taking?
Well, not necessarily elective, but because Spanish doesn't necessarily count. But ROTC and Spanish are the two other classes that I was, well, not allowed, that I chose. Because you were allowed one in your first year, but if you did summer school, then you had two.
What level of Spanish is this? Is this like normal high school casual Spanish, or is this like?
No, I'm trying to do like the highest that I can get to, maybe the second highest, because my friend told me that the high AP honors Spanish has a lot to do with like accents and how you spell things, which is something that I am very bad at. I mean, even my parents are bad at that, but I mean that's not really.
I don't speak Mexican.
I really wish I had the knife.
No bueno.
All day.
Muy nam blank bane. Whatever. Yeah, that's my Spanish for today. Non bueno. No, let's see. I know burrito. I know quesarito. Anyways, these are Spanish words. A burrito?
No, quesarito is not. Unless that's a woman. That's not.
Well, that's something else. Never mind.
Like Rita's house or something.
Rita's house.
Quesarita.
Okay.
So, I want to say this was a fun video. I have had a lot of fun doing this, and we'll continue doing these type of videos, world building, because I'm very much more interested in how Jack's, universe turns out and how he does it, more so than my crazy nonsense.
Yeah, and this is just this is probably going to go from the world that I have, well, at least important world that is the least in depth to the most, except for maybe the capital system, but that's because it's an important part of, because all this stuff would happen in the game and on this world takes place before the main events of the story, because you have this massive war which unites the galaxy to one empire, and then it kind of splits apart almost immediately because of how unstable it is. But a lot of it holds together. Then, like 1403 exactly, well, if they're gonna go, years happen, and then it goes into what I'm probably going to go most in depth with online. I mean, I told you about a website that I'm making and a possible fourth channel that's going to exist.
Ooh, fancy.
But whenever that exists, I will tell you. But it's actually what that weird map thing that I showed you on accident has to do with. But that, well, if everything went to plan, it would have been done. But procrastination is something that I am sadly very good at.
It happens. That is a very unhappy dog you guys have there.
There's someone's at the door or something. I don't know. We might have guests that are arriving now, which would suck because we're not ready for them because we're up here.
Yeah. They said that they were going to come late at, we thought they were going to come at 3, which is why we wanted to do it earlier. But then they said, no, we're going to do it at
6 o'clock on a Sunday night, knowing full well that the little guy's got to be up for school.
And that they got to be up to, move tomorrow.
Yeah, you honestly think they're ready to move?
No.
They're not even close. They got like 2 days from what I saw.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. We'll miss them. And, just like
December.
Yeah, and, just like, hanging out with you and everybody last night and Max's thing. And, our circle of online friends and hopefully someday, real life friends gets bigger every day, just, a little bit bigger. And, one of these days, we're going to have to find that neutral ground where we could all, take a bus or a plane or something, because I don't like to fly, where we can, hold something the equivalent of an actual convention. If Cabin Con can pull that thing off, and BenjaCon, and these cons are like 20 people, I'm on board with 20, 30 person, Shadow Con or something like that. That's got a nice ring to it, doesn't it, guys? Yeah, I think I'll have to make that happen.
No.
It really does. I know he's just saying that because, I'll embarrass the hell out of him on stage because I will insist that there be a stage, a microphone, a spotlight. Each and every one of us will have the opportunity to, to say hi and get their moment in the spotlight because I know some of us probably haven't had that. Not me. I've done all kinds of stupid shit in public. But I've been, especially after last night, I was thinking, about it. We got to make this happen and videotape the crap out of it, and get to meet each other in person and see if we're all as obnoxious in person as we are online. I think we're gonna all pass that with flying colors. But
I don't know. Max says he's a completely different person in person than he is on the show.
I totally get that, but at the same time, I don't want to really embarrass anybody or make anybody feel uncomfortable. There's so many people I can't wait to meet in person. You and Max, Bruce and DM James and Shauner and Baron, Jade and Kai and all of you guys. One of these days we got to make it happen. And even some of our friends in the chat, you guys would all be absolutely welcome. Sean Cherry and some of our regulars, Mark and my friend
Nathan,
Graham, Nathan too, of course. Graham has been with the channel since almost the very first day, and he's been such a good friend that I absolutely have to find a way to get as many of you. Well, that's pretty cool. We've got to find a nice neutral ground that's not too expensive for everybody to get to, and I don't even necessarily want to play any games. If all we do is just sit around a table and just shoot the shit, and break into little groups and go out to eat and just wreck a restaurant, just ruin it, just put them out of business. No, I'm kidding. Our rock star days for most of us are long since past. But I really think that would be. I
think that'd be really cool.
Something we need to shoot for.
So I honestly don't know what we're doing next Sunday. I have we could do a movie. We could do a movie review with the kiddo going to school here. I don't want to push, anything too big. The Dresden books are big. I haven't. I don't know how far you are in the first book of Amber. I'm already into the second book on audio. I'm. It's not my absolute number one favorite story of all time, but it is
number. We don't know what his favorite is.
No, we don't. We don't talk about it.
Oh yeah, you're right.
But it is by the same author. Most of you who know the author could probably guess.
And for some reason
because I know
he
that
forbids that we say its name.
Right, because it's one of those things that when Lord of the Rings the movies came out, I was bummed because suddenly everybody thought they were an expert and acted like they'd known it all these years. When by the time the movies came out, I had read The Hobbit more than 20 times and The Lord of the Rings about 10 or 15, and I knew it pretty well. But now suddenly, everybody's an expert because they watch a 2-hour movie. That's not how things work.
No,
and that's sort of, sure, I'm glad that people got to enjoy it and more people got to enjoy it. And maybe it encouraged people to go out and read the originals. But it wasn't, that didn't happen as much as I hoped. And when something like that becomes super popular, it also sort of becomes less popular with me and some other people I know. That's probably why my favorite band is Blue Oyster Cult. They went out of their way. They literally went out of their way, even knowing they could be, super famous. They went out of their way to not be famous. They wanted to play the small gigs and, shake hands with people after the show and just not let their heads explode with ego and fame. And it's one of the reasons why, I still like them after all these years. Whereas certain other groups and bands. The fame destroyed them, and they were wise enough back in the '60s and '70s to realize we don't want that. We want to I don't want to say it stay grungy, but stay humble.
That's fair. Then I'm going to recommend a movie. You guys are more than welcome to say yay or nay to it, but I'm going to say
okay, no.
What?
Yeah, I said okay, no.
All right. I want to say.
What's the movie? What's the movie?
Let's do The Labyrinth. David Bowie.
Labyrinth. Who's in it?
David Bowie, Jennifer Carpenter.
Okay.
Well, haven't you? I've never seen it at all. Like, not even.
I saw it once.
Oh, you did see it. How do you not know who's in it?
Because I always get Labyrinth and what's the other one?
Dark Crystal.
No, with Tim Curry in it.
And I assume you don't like Tim Curry.
Legends.
Yes. Yeah, I always get those two mixed up, and yeah, I'm not a big fan of Tim Curry.
I don't know who Tim Curry is.
Let's do.
And it's not because of what most people think. It's because the character he played in the movie The Shadow, it just made my skin crawl, and I always think of that. I've actually seen some things and heard his actual music, which most people don't know that's how he got his start. He was a musician, and some of his music was kind of cool, especially back in the day, way back in the day. But he just played this slimy character, this sweaty, slimy character that just gave me such the creeps.
I mean,
that I couldn't see him as anybody else, because I've seen Rocky Horror Picture Show probably close to over 125 times.
Oh, I can tell you how many times I've seen that nonsense. Goose egg.
Well, when Elvira was giving out tickets at midnight in the movies at K-Earth, I think it was K-Earth or KZY, I think maybe it was. My friends and I would go every Friday night, meet Cassandra, hang out with her for a while. She'd hand us a handful of tickets for midnight at the movies, and we'd go. And being a young teenager, I had the choice of Song Remains the Same, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd's The Wall, heavy metal, and some other movies, Wizards occasionally, or the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And a lot of my friends, we saw all the aforementioned movies, Pink Floyd, Song Remains the Same, a lot of times. And I noticed that, a lot of my friends wanted to go see Rocky Horror Picture Show, and then I figured out why. Because that's where the girls were. There were no girls to meet. And trust me, I met quite a few girls and watched it and hanging out at the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
When somebody says, "Hey, let's go see the Rocky Picture Show," you need to look at yourself in the mirror and says, "I need to make better friends."
Mind you, I was the youngest. I was between 14 and 17, and all my friends were 2 or 3 years older, and they had the car.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. I heard a lot of people say going to going to like a theater and watching the movie with a group of people is a whole different experience.
I was one of those people. I was in the cast. I was in those casts for a while.
Right. So was my ex-wife. So was my ex-wife.
And it was weird in a lot of different ways, but it was fun, and I met a lot of interesting people and learned a lot of things. Maybe a little too early.
The Rocky Horror Picture Show is an evil campaign that somebody decided to run.
I've heard that before, and it's more like a Call of Cthulhu story.
Fair enough. That I'll give you that one. But anyways, I think we should do the Labyrinth with David Bowie.
Okay, let me write that down on my list.
It's either the Labyrinth or Dark Crystal. I'm cool with either one. We want to do family-friendly movies, and Jack doesn't get to pick for another month. Yeah,
you know what? Let me see, because if Dark Crystal, the original, is free on Netflix, I'm going to go with that just because I'm a cheap son of a bitch. Even though I it's not because I have to be.
Yeah, he really doesn't have to be.
I could, I could rent it on Amazon or whatever. But let me write them both down.
I could do this really quick. Dark Crystal. What is it streaming on? On HBO Max.
Don't have it.
That is the only thing it's streaming on. No.
Okay, then we'll go with Labyrinth just because.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's a great movie and it's worth watching. I think both.
I honestly don't remember anything about it other than one image of David Bowie comes to mind. Which
the image of David Bowie?
No. There's lots of them. He really should have done more movies. He really should have.
Yeah.
But whatever, some people get into music to get into movies, and some people get into movies to get into music. Or comedy. Mix them up. Take your pick. But yeah, we'll do that. It'll make it easy for next week because we don't have to. We can spend a little bit less than 2 hours and be ready. I would love to
get to I would love to get to Summer Night. Don't get me wrong. I'd like to get back on the Dresden train.
Right, but that for us that's 8 to 12 hours.
Well, I can finish a Dresden book in 2 days.
You could. We'll see how your schedule is.
You're right.
Well, I was going to say, instead of we do a Dresden file once a month. So
let's just take it by ear because if the first week will traditionally be a little bit easy when it comes to going to school and coming home, etc. But the next week after that, he may get hit with a ton of homework, and that's the issue. Is the homework. He's got to have his homework done before he shows up on a show like this or the Friday night or the Saturday night streams. And, if his homework is done and he's, not falling behind or anything like that, it's all good. Otherwise, he's got to do what he's got to do.
No, I completely agree. I very much completely agree. Although my recommendation here, Jack, is start doing your push-ups. With that being said, I want everybody who watches this to hop over to Jade's channel, Jade's Tabletop Tavern, because he just put out a new video, Behind the Door Part 1. I'm going to watch it after we're done here today. I recommend you guys do the same. Send him much love. And if you guys, whoever is watching this later on, if you're not already subscribed to Shadow and Sons, go show them some love. And while you're at it, do the same for me.
Yeah. Give the big guy some love. His channel needs to grow, just not bigger than ours. But yeah, well, if it happens, those things actually do happen in life. I've seen a lot of my friends' channels grow bigger than ours, but ours has been doing pretty good. I'm pretty happy. But before we go, those of you that are watching. Know that when we do hit 500 subs, we are going to have a pretty big giveaway of plastic, actual miniatures, sealed in the box, ready to assemble, ready to paint, ready to melt down with firecrackers or what have you, to celebrate our 500 subscriber milestone. So hopefully we can make it by Christmas. That'd be nice because I'd really like to be able to send out some Christmas presents to people, and how we do that. I think we could do it a little bit different than the way some people do it. Maybe it's identical to others, but I want to do something special to say thank you to everybody out there. So wish us luck, because Christmas is what
4 months,
4.5 months away. Yeah. I'd really like to see that. I mean, I'd rather see 1,000, but I'm gonna be patient. We've only been doing this 2 years, which reminds me, I think Monday or Tuesday is our 2-year anniversary. So we're going to try and do something.
It's most likely Tuesday.
So we're going to try and do something a little special for that as well. But until then, guys, have a great week. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's been a blast. And, we love you guys. We'll see you real soon.
All right. with that all being said, I want to thank Shadow and Jack for joining me today and all the past Sundays and all the future Sundays down the road. As I say, go check out Jade's Tabletop Tavern video. And look for me on Tuesday evening, late night chat with O'Connell, because there's a good chance I will be talking about my Tuesday campaign. I will be running a new campaign for some, not newer players, but some players I don't really know. And it should be an interesting evening. If you're interested about it, stay tuned, because I'll give you guys more of the story Tuesday night. With that being said, remember, don't drink and drive. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Jack, do your homework. Roll your dice in the dark and fill out your character sheet with the crayon. And everybody have a lovely evening. And go to church every so often. It might not hurt you. Talk to you later. Bye.